You can hear from this one, this is pure metal. Hey, hello people, this is Dan and welcome to another episode. Today we'll be talking about the types of DIs and how to choose a DI. Let's go. Now, there are two main types of DIs, and those are active DIs and passive DIs. Okay? Active, passive. As you can already guess, active DIs need some kind of power in order to operate, while passive DIs do not need any kind of power to operate. And as we saw in our last episode where we talked about what is a DI, the main principle used in a DI is the principle of a transformer. For a passive DI, it's just passive. It uses the power of the incoming signal to induce into the output side. But for a power DI, it has a part of its circuit that needs some powering in order for it to work correctly. Why is this important? Now, last time we talked about keyboards and other instruments that need DIs in order for you to connect effectively to your console or to your stage box. What we did not talk about, however, is that apart from keyboards, which give you an already amplified signal, there are other instruments, namely your guitars, your electric guitar, the ones that are passive, because again, there are some guitars which are powered. Because the signal that is coming from an electric guitar, one that is passive, is so weak, it becomes even weaker. And because this signal is already so weak, the level of its power goes down significantly once you put it through one of these, a passive DI. So in comes the active DI. That's where the active DI comes in. Because now when you're using an active DI, it helps now to boost that signal from a guitar, and it gets some power so that it can be able to be transformed successfully without losing a bunch of power. So, how now do we pick? How do we choose which one to buy? Number one, obviously, if you're buying a DI for an electric guitar, which is passive, you will need an active DI. Okay? If you buy a passive DI for your electric guitar, which is passive, and here we are talking about coming out of the guitar straight into the DI. We are not talking about going through an effects unit or an effects pedal. No, we are talking about going straight from your guitar into a DI. If you have an electric guitar which is passive, you will need an active DI. If you get a passive DI, the volume level, the power of that signal will be so low, and it will become a challenge to mix that guitar. It will have a ton of noise on top of it. Okay, the signal to noise ratio will be so low, and you will just struggle to get a good mix out of that guitar. Okay, so that's number one thing to consider, the kind of instrument, the kind of signal that you want to transform through the DI. Okay, that also means that for keyboards, it's okay to have a passive DI. For keyboards or for any instrument that has a signal that is already amplified, some of the DIs have a compartment where you can connect a 9-volt battery. I think I have one like that here. Here you go. As you can see here, there is a compartment for a 9-volt battery. This is where you put the 9-volt battery and it powers the DI. This is an active DI. For Others, you don't have that option, and the only way you can power that active DI is through phantom power from your stage box or from your console. Okay, so most consoles nowadays will power all your gadgets that need power. Just like the mic I'm using right now is a condenser mic. It has to be powered, and you power that through phantom power. The same thing with the active DI, you can power it from your mixer. Now, the downside to this is that not all your mixers or not all the gadgets that are receiving the signal will have that phantom power. And so it's not always ideal to have an active DI. And so that is the first thing actually to consider when you're buying a DI. Is it active or is it passive? The second thing to consider when getting a DI is the option to attenuate your signal. Does the DI have an option to attenuate your signal? Actually, a lot of DIs nowadays come with this option, but not all of them come with this option. Some of the DIs out there are just isolators, okay? And this is a very important feature to have, the option to attenuate your signal. If you look here, you will see that this one has the option to stay at 0 dB. That means no change to your signal level at all. Or in the other position, it's the option to cut your signal level by 12 decibels. In another one like this one, you'll find it has two options. One is to cut by 20 decibels and the other one is to cut by 40 decibels. It is a very useful feature, especially when you're not necessarily going into a mixing console. Maybe you're going straight from your keyboard to your camera. So in order for you to be able to control that output properly, you might find yourself in need of that switch. So that's the other thing to consider. The third thing to consider when you're getting a DI is whether it has this output here. Okay, on this one it's labeled parallel out. On some of these it will be marked with something like link. Okay, so this is where the signal is going in. This is the link. Let me give you a better one. You can see it's either marked parallel out or a link, or in this case through. That means that you can tap the signal that you are feeding into the DI, you can tap it out and take it somewhere else. Like for example, in the case of a guitar, you can take it to your guitar amplifier. In other cases, there is flat out no option of linking, okay? And that also is something to consider when you're getting a DI. All of these things obviously have an impact on the price of the DI that you're buying. The fourth thing to consider, and very importantly, actually this should have been the first one, is the build quality. You can hear from this one, this is pure metal. Actually, that's one of the things that I liked about this cheap DI from China. Most of the times, you can tell the quality of what is inside by the quality of what is outside. This is as compared, for example, to something like this. You can just feel, when you compare the build quality, you can just feel it's a bit flimsy when you compare to something like this. Now, when you come to something like this, it's a whole another story. You can even see from the thickness of the shell that it's really built like a tank. This is something you can just drop and have no worries of. I'm not saying you drop your equipment, but this is something you can even drop without any fear that it's going to break. And this is important because DIs tend to be one of those equipment, one of those things on stage which are easy to step on because most of the times they live on the floor. So it's just so easy for someone to trip on a DI, for someone to step on it. And so it is important for it to be very well built such that it can withstand those stresses when when people are working on stage, when it's being set up, when it's being set down, that it can withstand that. So the build quality is very important. As you can see, even from this one, there is not much to report in terms of build. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. It's okay. But when you compare it with this, there's just no comparison. The other thing to consider, this number 5 now, is the quality of the components inside. And for most people, including myself for the most part, the only way to tell the quality of the components inside is to go by brand. We know of some very high-end brands like Radio. Radio makes some very expensive DIs, but just by the brand, you can start to guess that the components inside are probably a certain standard, okay? As opposed to if you buy a cheap thing from China, you can probably tell that is not made with very high quality components. Why is this important? Obviously, sound quality depends on the quality of the components inside. That means, for example, if you be using a DI on stage where you're doing live recordings and that sort of work, it is very important to get a high-end DI. Quality just means how well that equipment, that gadget, preserves the original signal. And so does that DI do that? Does it conserve or preserve the quality and the tonality and the characteristics of the original signal? That is what we mean by quality. Number 2, does it introduce noise? Number 3, how does it perform under stress? Like, for example, what if you hit the input of this gadget with a very high-powered signal? How does it perform under that kind of stress? What if you use it for a long time? How does it perform under those conditions? There's something we call high tolerance components. High tolerance components are capacitors and diodes and resistors that are able to withstand very high stress scenarios without a big change in the way they handle the signal. That means even if you use it under very stressful conditions, maybe you've been using it for hours and hours, the sound will not change. And that is not the case with the lower quality and the lower tier equipment, like the cheaper DIs. And so, for example, you will not find me using this on stage where we are doing recording, unless it's just a casual recording. But on serious work, you will find something that can be able to give us the quality and protect and maintain the fidelity and characteristic of the original signal. And number 5, and the last one, of course, is the price of the DI. Like, for example, I said this is a cheap one I got from AliExpress, and you can go like that all the way to the very high end and very expensive ones. So what is your budget? That's the other thing that you consider. And of course, now that absolutely depends on you. But you can always strike a balance between quality, build quality, and price. as long as you get something that serves the purpose that you want served. Thank you very much. I know this one was a longer one, but thank you for sticking through to the end. If this video has helped you, go ahead and like it and share it. And if you'd like this kind of content in future, go ahead and subscribe, go ahead and follow me, and hit that notification bell so that you can be notified of future videos. Thank you very much. God bless you, and continue using your talent for the glory of God. Cheers.